Welcome. If you've made it this far, there's already something different about you. Perhaps it's just a restlessness that's hard to explain. Perhaps it's the silent feeling that life could be responding better to your effort. Or perhaps it's simply the realization that time is passing and you want more than just to keep up. Before anything else, let the outside world slow down for a moment. No rush, no expectations. Just listen. There is a type of knowledge that doesn't attract attention. It doesn't make headlines. It's not taught directly. But when someone comes into contact with it, the way they make decisions is never the same again. It's like perceiving a mechanism that has always been turning behind the scenes of reality, a logic that explains why some trajectories advance consistently, while others remain stuck in constant struggle. And the most curious thing is, this logic doesn't depend on perfect conditions. It depends on a specific moment of clarity. Perhaps this is the moment for you. Over the next few minutes, you won't hear any quick fixes. You won't find any magic formulas, but you might find something rarer: direction. Because when direction appears, doubt loses its power. When understanding arrives, fear begins to diminish. And when vision changes, the future stops seeming distant and starts to seem possible. So stay here, not as a spectator, but as someone about to see their own path more clearly. Today, we're going to talk about something that looks simple, but is transformative in practice: how to invest $1,000 in 2026. It may seem like a small amount. It may seem like it's too late. It may seem like this amount doesn't change anything. But this perception is precisely where most people get lost before they even begin. Because investing doesn't start with quantity, it starts with positioning. Throughout this content, you will understand why the initial investment is rarely the deciding factor, and why how you structure your decisions can have a much greater impact than the amount invested. We will explore 3 fundamental aspects that separate attempted construction from actual construction. First, how to protect your behavior so that your decisions aren't controlled by the pressure of the moment. Then, how to create a system that works even when motivation fluctuates. And finally, how to expand your capacity before expanding your risk so that growth is sustainable. Nothing here depends on a perfect scenario. Nothing here requires you to have more than you already have today. What you are about to hear is a different way of looking at the beginning. Because in many cases, 1,000 reais isn't capital, it's a silent turning point. Let's begin. Pillar 1. Protect your behavior before seeking a return. Take a breath and listen carefully. The market is not an environment of cold, hard numbers. It's an environment of decisions made under pressure. And pressure doesn't test knowledge. Pressure tests emotional stability. Most people enter the game looking for the right investment. But those who truly evolve discover something deeper. The first asset that needs protecting isn't money. It's one's own behavior. Because a comeback without emotional stability is never sustainable. Imagine 2 people facing the same market downturn. The first feels fear, opens the app and sells everything to stop the discomfort. The second observes the same downturn and doesn't react, not because they are indifferent, but because they have already decided how to act. Externally, the scene is identical. Internally, they are 2 different worlds. One reacts, the other acts. It is at this point that wealth begins to separate from frustration. People believe they lose money due to a lack of information, but historical data shows otherwise. Information exists, analysis exists. What fails is the ability to maintain decisions when emotions run high. Discipline is not constant willpower. Discipline is eliminating the need to make decisions under stress. When you set rules before pressure arises, you protect your clarity.
When emotion appears, you don't need to interpret the moment. You simply execute what has already been decided in a stable mental state. This completely changes the way we act. Fear narrows horizons. Anxiety shortens vision of the future. Urgency creates decisions that seem necessary but are merely biological reactions. Therefore, structure does not limit, structure protects. As the richest man in Babylon teaches, wealth begins with a simple and almost silent principle. A portion of everything you earn is yours to keep. This idea isn't just about saving money, it's about preserving behavior. It's about deciding in advance that the future will take priority over impulse. Prosperity, in this sense, doesn't arise from grand events. It arises from stable habits maintained long enough to become part of your identity. Protecting behavior means creating a simple and repeatable system. First, pre-decision planning. You define how to act before the market fluctuates. Second, automation. The fewer manual decisions, the less emotional interference. Third, a defined time horizon. When there is a deadline, fluctuations cease to seem like threats and become part of the process. Notice the reversal. You're not trying to control the market, you're reducing the ability of emotion to control you. This shift in perspective is what transforms the relationship with money, as proposed in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich people don't work for money, they make money work for them. This phrase doesn't just describe a financial outcome, it describes an attitude. First, you organize your behavior, then you build assets, and only then does the return begin to reflect the structure you've created. One person seeks returns first and stability later. They live alternating between enthusiasm and frustration. Another builds stability first and returns later. They live in quiet growth. External differences take time to appear. Internal differences are immediate. Your first $1,000 aren't meant for quick multiplication. They're meant for training predictability under uncertainty. You're not investing money, you're training consistency. This logic appears directly in from 1,000 to 1 million without cutting out your coffee break. Getting rich requires 3 simultaneous movements: spending better, investing better, and earning more. But behind these 3 movements lies a silent foundation: consistency before enthusiasm, method before enthusiasm. When behavior is organized, progress ceases to depend on motivation and begins to depend on process. And consistency is the true foundation of lasting wealth. When the behavior stabilizes, volatility ceases to be a threat and becomes merely a natural variation in the path. The market doesn't get easier, you become more stable, and stability is an invisible advantage. Let's move on to the next one.
Pillar 2. Build a system before seeking intensity. Now the scene changes. We leave the realm of emotion and enter the realm of engineering. If the first pillar stabilizes those who decide, this one stabilizes how financial life moves. Most people try to grow by increasing effort, more energy, more urgency, more intensity. But intensity is unstable. It depends on mood, motivation, and circumstance. The system doesn't depend on any of that. The system is what keeps functioning when you are tired, busy, or insecure. Sustainable wealth doesn't arise from fleeting moments of success. It arises from silent mechanisms that operate continuously. A personal finance system has 3 simple characteristics: defined flow, automatic execution, and predictable repetition. Without a system, every decision requires emotional energy. With a system, decisions cease to be events and become routine. Routine transforms uncertainty into procedure. Think like a director who builds a permanent set instead of improvising each scene. The environment then supports the action.
This structural logic is precisely what appears in The Richest Man in Babylon. A portion of everything you earn is yours to keep. This principle doesn't just describe saving, it describes standardizing cash flow. A defined percentage creates an automatic financial channel. When the destination of the money is decided before spending, the system begins to exist. And when the system exists, growth ceases to depend on emotional effort. The system means that money has predefined trajectories. First, a protective flow, resources that reduce vulnerability and create stability. Second, a growth flow, resources that contribute to the productivity of the economy over time. Third, an expansionary flow, resources invested in expanding its capacity to generate income. When these flows coexist, progress ceases to be occasional and becomes structural. This architecture is also at the heart of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich people don't work for money, they make money work for them. What makes money work isn't intense effort, it's a system that continuously directs resources to assets. The structure takes over repetitive work, intensity is no longer necessary. Without a system, each month demands renewed willpower. With a system, each month merely confirms an already established pattern. This operational vision is reinforced in a contemporary way in From 1,000 to 1,000,000 without cutting out your coffee. Getting rich requires 3 simultaneous movements: spending better, investing better, and earning more. These 3 movements form an integrated mechanism. They are not isolated events, they are gears that operate together. The book emphasizes that small, organized actions, repeated methodically, build results that do not depend on extraordinary moments. The system creates predictability. Predictability reduces emotional noise. Less noise allows for continuity. Continuity transforms time into an ally. Now consider 2 scenarios over 12 months. In the first scenario, the person only invests when they feel confident. They adjust values frequently, they react to news. They stop investing when fear arises, they resume when enthusiasm arises. In the second approach, the person implements a simple system: defined percentages, regular contributions, reviews at specific intervals. No improvisation. Externally, the initial difference may seem subtle. Internally, the difference is structural. One person lives in intermittent effort, the other lives in continuous motion. The market fluctuates, the system remains. Motivation varies, the process continues. The result emerges as an inevitable consequence of the flow. When a system exists, intensity ceases to be the fuel. The structure then sustains the progress. Last but not least.
Pillar 3. Expand your capacity before expanding your risk. Now the camera moves again. We leave emotional stability. We leave system engineering. We enter the territory of expansion. Most people try to grow by increasing risk, more exposure, more bets, more urgency for return. But real growth doesn't come from taking more risks. It comes from becoming capable of sustaining more. Risk without capability increases vulnerability. Capability without risk creates potential. When the two meet at the right time, growth becomes sustainable. Capability means something simple yet profound. Your ability to generate income, your ability to maintain discipline on a larger scale, your ability to understand what you are doing, your ability to persevere when results are slow in coming. Before increasing investment, increase the number of investors. This logic appears fundamentally in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich acquire assets, the poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. This phrase isn't just about financial choice,
It's about developing perception. First, you learn to distinguish what builds cash flow from what consumes energy. This clarity is capability, and capability reduces the need for impulsive risk-taking. Expanding capacity is building the foundations that support growth. Knowledge reduces errors. Skill increases income generation. Reserves create a safety margin. Experience improves decision-making under uncertainty. Without these layers, rapid growth turns into instability. That's why the richest man in Babylon emphasizes progressive building principles. Make the gold work for you. But before that, the book teaches how to protect, save, and learn. Growth doesn't begin with aggressive multiplication. It begins with gradually strengthening the foundation. Wealth grows at the same rate as the ability to manage it. Capacity is the invisible limit to sustainable growth. As your capabilities grow, the risk required to advance decreases. When your capabilities are low, any risk seems significant. Notice the progression of the three pillars. First, you stabilize behavior. Then you build the system. Finally, you expand capacity. At this point, growth ceases to be an attempt. It becomes an inevitable consequence of the structure you have built. The market will continue to change. The economy will continue to fluctuate. But those who build infrastructure don't depend on forecasts to move forward. They depend solely on continuity.
Small, repeated decisions made with clarity create stability. Stability creates trust. Trust sustains the time needed for the result to appear. 1,000 rials may seem like a small amount when viewed in isolation, but when organized with intention, it ceases to be just money and becomes a statement piece. The market will continue to change, the economy will continue to fluctuate, but those who build infrastructure don't depend on forecasts to move forward, they depend solely on continuity. If there is one central message in everything you've heard today, it is this: starting with clarity is more powerful than waiting for the perfect moment. And when you decide to build, time ceases to be an obstacle and becomes an ally. And unfortunately, we have reached the end of this journey. If you've stayed this far, you've already done something most people don't do. You stopped, you observed, you reflected. And that, in itself, changes the way the path unfolds ahead of you. Remember what really matters. It's not about starting with a lot, it's about starting with direction. It's not about momentary intensity, it's about quiet consistency. It's not about predicting the future, it's about building enough structure to navigate it with stability. May the decisions you make in the future be more conscious, may your actions be more intentional, and may your growth be sustained by clarity, not haste. Thank you for walking this far with me. See you in the next post, and until then, keep getting stronger.